Monica Glenning, and this is the Persuasive speech. To obtain the country's high demand for energy sources, the United States have moved on from coal to fossil fuel extractions onto hydraulic fracking. Hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, is considered as a safer method for extracting oil and natural gas from deep underground. The use for hydraulic fracking has delivered some positive impacts on the country. In the 2012 National Geographic article, How Has Fracking Changed Our Future, written by Christina Nunez, hydraulic fracking added $6.2 billion to the federal and state income. It also provided 1.7 million jobs for Americans. However, those who advocate against it believe that fracking poses a threat to the water supply for millions of people. Air pollution caused by fracking threatens public health and negatively impacts the wildlife environment. From the controversial 2010 documentary Gasland, hydraulic companies offered money to documentary filmmaker Josh Fox. After rejecting the company's proposal, Fox then went across the country to document the hidden truth about hydraulic fracking. Within the documentary, Fox discussed to viewers that the Bush-Cheney administration exempted the drilling process in hydraulic fracking from the United States environmental regulations, leaving environmental threats to water and air. In other words, Cheney had helped relieve the regulations from existing environmental protections for big and oil gas companies, leaving the environment vulnerable. Fox was not the only person who felt the big oil and gas companies' presence. From the published Rolling Stones article on March 1st, 2012, The Big Fracking Bubble, the scam behind Aubrey McLeoding's gas boom, written by Jeff Goodall, a dairy farmer, Sherry Vargerson, had to sign non-disclosure agreement for the companies to drill on her land. The agreement had led her and her husband exposed to high-level methanes in her water supply with radioactive chemicals. Millions of people across the country are being affected by these big oil and gas companies. Advocates would downplay Vargerson and Fox's story and interject to the American people that this is a patriotic way for the country to gain energy independence. Hydraulic drilling sites leave the public high with high emissions of toxic chemicals in the atmosphere. The National Resource Defense Council published an article of December 2014, Fracking Fumes, Air Pollution from Hydraulic Fracturing Threatens Public Health and Communities, discusses the harmful effects of oil and gas-related issues in the ozone layer. The fracking process releases nitrogen oxides, which later forms into smog. Leaving the people exposure to smog can lead to a variety of health issues such as respiratory effects, reduced lung function, chronic respiratory disease systems, and even premature death. Fracking leads to wildlife disturbance. The amount of noise and excessive lights to drill for oil and gas disrupts the natural habitat. Listed on the website for Centers of Biological Diversity and the effects hydraulic fracking has on wildlife across the United States, instead of providing water for the species, companies are stripping away the resources for the use of drilling. In the region of Texas and Colorado, the United States has used 2 to 10 million gallons of water needed for every drill to be fractured. This 2014 diagram represents the amount of water used for hydraulic fracking. This diagram, taken from the facts about Canada's oils and gas industry, shows the resources used in hydraulic fracking. As you can see, water is one of the most important elements used in the drilling process. The drilling process uses different types of water resources. Surface water, which is at 61.7%, is obviously used as the most. Flowback water is contaminating water resources for species nearby. Lastly, the most disturbing one will be the wastewater, providing breeding grounds for mosquitoes that can transmit diseases such as the West Nile virus onto the wildlife birds. Hydraulic fracking is still widely and popularly used all throughout the United States. In Fox's second Gasland documentary, he states that the United States must find other energy options to uphold its high demand. Advocates for drilling tell credits that jobs and income would lead to unemployment and drastic changes without hydraulic fracking. From the Stanford article of March 12, 2013, Mark Jacobson, a Stanford professor, has studied to fulfill all energy sources in its components. Jacobson believes that it is economically feasible to convert all energy infrastructure to one powered by wind, water, and sunlight. Converting to these all-purpose energy resources provides jobs, reduce gas and oil prices, stabilize energy prices, and decrease water and air pollution. So the question I have picked would be, which people/parties oppose this solution and why? I believe the Republican/Conservative Party would oppose the banning of hydraulic fracking because it is such a controversial topic. From the Washington Post, President-elect Joe Biden wants to regulate the fracking rather than banning it completely, unlike his other Democratic opponents such as Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. It is increasingly hard just to quit something we have done since the 1940s. It's like a person smoking a pack of cigarettes. Like, it takes a long time for that person to transition from smoking a pack of cigarettes every day to like not smoking at all. The United States need to transition from hydraulic fracking into clean and reusable energy. Yes, for now, fracking provides jobs for many Americans, but if we transition to or start to transition into clean and recyclable energy, it then will provide many more jobs. The second question is, why hasn't your solution been enacted already? I believe because it is a controversial topic and everything. The Democratic Party actually are trying to pass a new energy deal called the Green New Deal, and an example of the government trying to transition from fossil fuel and gas emissions. There's not really a clear example of how much it would cost to transition from fossil fuel to clean energy, but like converting the country to clean power, Vermont has a goal of a 90% renewable energy by mid-century. The cost would be roughly around like $33 billion. Pro-frackers such as Trump wants to keep the fracking despite its environmental effects. There is still such a constant struggle on energy, and honestly, it may take even more political issues. Well, it will take a long time for the country to come together and agree on a new energy plan to convert to clean energy rather than rely on fossil fuel, because eventually fossil fuel is just going to run out, and then our global warming is increasing, so we honestly have to focus on that. So just by converting to clean energy helps reduce the increasing effects of global warming. And that's about it.